If someone had asked me 6 years ago what the worst pain in life was, I would have said divorce. Now I know I was wrong. Divorce ends a marriage. Lies destroy an entire life. My name is Lauren Mitchell, and for 5 years almost everyone I knew believed I was the villain of a story I never wrote. The strange thing is, I couldn't even blame them. If I had only heard Jason's version, I might have believed him too. He was charming. Funny. Confident. The kind of man who could walk into a room full of strangers and leave with 20 new friends. I was the opposite. Quiet. Reserved. The person who preferred listening instead of talking. That difference didn't matter when we first met. Or at least I thought it didn't. Jason always joked that I balanced him out. "You keep me grounded," he'd tell everyone while wrapping an arm around my shoulders. People loved hearing that. They thought we were the perfect couple. For nearly 9 years, I believed it too. Our marriage wasn't perfect, but whose is? We argued about money sometimes. He switched jobs more often than I liked. He had expensive hobbies that somehow always became investments. Still, I trusted him. When he said he needed money to launch another business idea, I believed him. When he said a late meeting kept him at the office until midnight, I never questioned it. When he smiled at me and promised we were building a future together, I smiled back. Looking back now, I wonder how many of those smiles were rehearsed. Everything changed on a rainy Thursday afternoon. Jason came home unusually early. He didn't kiss me. Didn't ask about my day. He simply placed a folder on the kitchen table. "I think we should get divorced." Just like that. No tears. No explanation. No fight. Just one sentence that erased almost a decade of my life. I remember staring at him, waiting for him to laugh and admit it was some terrible joke. He never did. "Is there someone else?" I whispered. He sighed dramatically, almost as if I had disappointed him. "Lauren, this is exactly why we're here." "What does that mean?" "You always assume the worst." I actually apologized. Can you believe that? I apologized to the man who had just asked for a divorce. He acted calm while I sat there trying not to fall apart. He told me we'd grown apart. That he wanted us both to be happy. That it wasn't anyone's fault. Those words sounded comforting. Until 3 days later. I was buying groceries when an old neighbor looked at me with open disgust. She didn't even try to hide it. "I can't believe you did that to Jason." I blinked. "I'm sorry?" "You know exactly what I'm talking about." Before I could ask another question, she walked away. That was the first time. It wasn't the last. Within 2 weeks, friends stopped answering my calls. Coworkers became strangely distant. Even my cousin canceled dinner without giving a reason. At first, I thought everyone was simply choosing sides after the divorce. Then Hannah called me. She sounded nervous. "Lauren. What happened?" "I didn't know whether to tell you." "Tell me what?" She hesitated for several seconds. "Jason has been telling everyone you cheated on him." I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was impossible. "What?" "He says he caught you with another man." I couldn't even breathe. "I've never cheated." "I know. He knows that too." Hannah was quiet. Then she said the words that changed everything. "Lauren. I don't think he's just leaving you. I think he's trying to destroy you." I wanted to believe Hannah was overreacting. Surely Jason wouldn't spend his time spreading lies after ending our marriage. He had asked for the divorce. He got exactly what he wanted. Why would he keep attacking me? I found out the answer a week later. I walked into my favorite coffee shop, the place where the barista already knew my order before I reached the counter. The conversation stopped. Not one or two. Every single one. I could actually feel people staring at me. Someone whispered, "That's her." Another voice answered, "She doesn't even look guilty." My stomach dropped. I took my coffee and left without saying a word. Outside, I sat in my car for nearly 20 minutes, trying to understand what had happened to my life. When I got home, Hannah was waiting on my porch. She didn't smile. I've heard everything. What everything? She pulled out her phone. I didn't want to show you this, but I think you need to see it. It was Jason's social media page. He hadn't mentioned my name directly, but he didn't have to. His posts were carefully written to make himself look like the victim. Sometimes the people you trust most betray you. Loyalty means nothing to some people. Healing after infidelity isn't easy, but I'm trying. Thousands of likes. Hundreds of comments. People called him brave. Strong. An inspiration. Some even wrote that they hoped his cheating wife regretted everything. None of them knew the truth. Jason never once wrote my name. He didn't need to. Everyone already knew who he was talking about. He's doing this on purpose, Hannah said quietly. I know. No. You don't. She looked me straight in the eyes. I've talked to 3 people this week. And? They all believe you had an affair. I felt like someone had punched me in the chest. I never even looked at another man. I know. But they don't. Over the next few months, things became even worse. One of my closest friends blocked my number without explanation. My aunt stopped inviting me to family gatherings. Neighbors who had smiled at me for years suddenly looked away whenever we crossed paths. I wasn't just divorced anymore. I had become the woman who betrayed her husband. The label followed me everywhere. At work, I noticed people whispering when I entered meetings. No one accused me directly. They didn't have to. Rumors are powerful because people treat them like facts. I buried myself in work. Numbers didn't judge me. Spreadsheets didn't gossip. For a while, work became the only place where I felt useful. Then even that began to fall apart. One afternoon, my manager asked me to step into his office. He looked uncomfortable. I want you to know this isn't my decision. My heart started racing. What isn't? He folded his hands together. A client requested someone else handle their account. Why? He hesitated. They're concerned about your personal reputation. I stared at him. My reputation? They heard some things. I didn't cry until I reached my car. That day wasn't just about losing an important client. It was the moment I realized Jason's lies had escaped our personal lives. They were affecting my career. My future. Everything I had worked for. That night I opened every photo from our marriage. Vacations. Birthdays. Anniversaries. Smiling faces. Happy memories. For hours I searched for the moment where everything had gone wrong. I couldn't find it. Instead, I found something else. In dozens of photos, Jason was holding the same phone. The one he claimed had been stolen years earlier. The same phone he later insisted contained proof of my affair before it supposedly disappeared. Back then, I hadn't questioned the story. Now. For the first time, a thought entered my mind. What if none of it had been an accident? What if Jason had planned this long before he ever asked me for a divorce? That question refused to leave my mind. What if this wasn't revenge? What if it was preparation? For days, I replayed the last 2 years of our marriage in my head. Small moments I had ignored suddenly looked different. Jason insisting on handling all our finances. Jason asking me to sign documents without reading them because we were running late. Jason changing passwords to our shared accounts, saying it was for security. At the time, I trusted my husband. Now I wasn't sure I had ever really known him. I started digging through old boxes in my apartment. Bank statements. Tax returns. Insurance papers. Anything with our names on it. Most of it looked normal. Then I noticed something strange. One investment account had disappeared. I remembered it clearly because we'd opened it together 4 years before the divorce. We had agreed to save money for our future home. Nearly $200,000 had been deposited into that account over several years. But according to the divorce papers, it didn't exist. I searched every document again. Nothing. No account. No savings. No mention of those funds anywhere. My hands started shaking. I logged into my old email. After nearly an hour of searching, I found an old confirmation message from the bank proving the account had existed. I wasn't imagining it. Somehow, that money had vanished before the divorce. I immediately called the bank. After verifying my identity, the representative apologized. "I'm sorry, Ms. Mitchell. You were removed from that account 3 years ago." I was, "What?" "You were removed as a joint account holder. I never authorized that." There was a long pause. "I'm afraid I can't discuss any additional details over the phone." The call ended, but my heart wouldn't stop racing. Someone had removed my name from an account I legally owned. I never signed anything. At least, I didn't think I had. That evening, I spread every document across my dining room table. Page after page. Signature after signature. Then I found it. A financial authorization form. My signature was at the bottom. Except, it didn't look right. Most people wouldn't notice. I almost didn't. But I had signed my name thousands of times. This signature looked stiff. Like someone had copied it instead of writing it naturally. I compared it with my driver's license. Then with my passport. Then with old birthday cards. The differences were tiny. But they were there. My pulse quickened. Could someone have forged my signature? The next morning, I scheduled a consultation with an attorney. Rebecca Turner listened without interrupting as I explained everything. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. "Do you still have every document from the divorce?" "I think so. I'll need all of them." "You think something illegal happened?" "I think," she replied carefully, "that I don't believe in coincidences." She spent almost 2 weeks reviewing the paperwork. During that time, I barely slept. Every phone call made my heart race. Finally, Rebecca asked me to come into her office. She closed the door before speaking. "Lauren, I need you to stay calm." That sentence alone made my stomach twist. "What did you find?" She slid several folders across the desk. "There are serious inconsistencies." "Inconsistencies?" "Assets that disappeared. Transfers that were never disclosed. And at least 3 documents I believe require forensic handwriting analysis." I felt the room spinning. "So, I'm not crazy?" "No." She looked directly at me. "I believe your ex-husband intentionally concealed marital assets." I couldn't speak. Rebecca continued. "And if I'm right, that's only the beginning." "What do you mean?" She opened another folder. Inside were copies of financial records I had never seen before. One name appeared over and over again. Jason Mitchell. Another unfamiliar woman's name appeared beside his. The dates made my blood run cold. They weren't from after our divorce. They were from 2 years before Jason ever asked me to leave. He hadn't just lied about why our marriage ended. He had been building another life while still pretending to build one with me. And suddenly, the divorce no longer looked like the beginning of the story. It looked like the final step of a plan that had started years earlier. I left Rebecca's office feeling like the ground beneath me had disappeared. For years, I had blamed myself. I replayed every argument, every misunderstanding, every quiet dinner where Jason barely looked at me. I kept wondering what I could have done differently. Now I knew the truth. Nothing. The marriage hadn't failed because I wasn't enough. It had failed because Jason had already decided it was over long before he told me. Rebecca hired a forensic accountant to examine every financial record we could legally obtain. The deeper he looked, the uglier the picture became. Money had been transferred through several different accounts. Large payments had been disguised as business expenses. Property had been purchased under the name of a limited liability company Jason controlled but never disclosed during our divorce. It wasn't just dishonest. It looked deliberate. One afternoon Rebecca called me. "I need you to come in." I recognized the excitement in her voice. She had found something. When I arrived, she placed a stack of papers in front of me. "Look at these dates. Every transfer happened within 6 months before Jason filed for divorce. Every single one. He was hiding assets before he ever ended the marriage," I whispered. Rebecca nodded. "And there's more." She handed me another document. It was a lease agreement. Jason had rented an apartment nearly 18 months before our divorce. The tenant listed on the lease wasn't just him. It included another woman. Brooke Collins. The same woman who had appeared beside him on social media only weeks after our divorce became final. He had introduced her to everyone as someone he met afterward. That was another lie. They had already been living together while he was still coming home to me every evening. I stared at the lease until the words blurred. I made him dinner every night. Rebecca remained silent. I washed his clothes. Still nothing. I believed every excuse. She finally spoke. Lauren. I wasn't even competing with another woman. I laughed bitterly. I was competing with a future he had already planned. A month later we officially filed a lawsuit. Not because he had cheated. Cheating isn't a crime. But hiding marital assets, submitting false financial disclosures, and using forged documents during legal proceedings were entirely different matters. Jason responded almost immediately. His attorney, Christopher Allen, filed a motion calling my claims baseless accusations from a bitter ex-wife. Reading those words made my blood boil. Bitter. That was how they described a woman whose life had been dismantled piece by piece. The first court hearing arrived sooner than I expected. Jason walked into the courthouse wearing an expensive navy blue suit. He smiled at nearly everyone he passed. People smiled back. Even after everything Rebecca had uncovered, the world still saw him as the charming victim. When our eyes met, he actually nodded at me. As though we were old friends. As though he hadn't spent 5 years destroying my reputation. Christopher stood and confidently addressed the judge. Your Honor, my client has endured years of harassment from a former spouse who refuses to accept the end of their marriage. Harassment. I almost couldn't believe what I was hearing. Rebecca remained perfectly calm. She whispered, "Don't react." Then Jason took the witness stand. He spoke softly. He sounded heartbroken. He claimed he had loved me until he discovered my supposed affair. He claimed I became unstable after the divorce. He claimed I was trying to ruin his successful life because I couldn't move on. Watching him speak was terrifying. Not because I believed him. Because he believed himself. Or at least he had rehearsed the lies so many times they sounded effortless. When the hearing ended that afternoon, reporters outside the courthouse surrounded Jason. Microphones pointed toward him. Cameras followed every step. Almost nobody noticed me quietly leaving through the side entrance. As Hannah drove me home, neither of us spoke for several minutes. Finally, I broke the silence. I think he's going to win. Hannah tightened her grip on the steering wheel. No. You heard him. I did. Everyone still believes him. She looked at me with complete certainty. They believe him because they haven't seen the truth yet. What if the truth isn't enough? She smiled for the first time all day. Rebecca has one piece of evidence she hasn't shown anyone. What evidence? Hannah shook her head. I don't know. But she told me one thing. What? When that evidence reaches the courtroom, Jason's entire story will collapse. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to feel something I hadn't dared to feel before. Hope. It was fragile. Dangerous. Because hope has a way of hurting you even more when it disappears. I wanted to know what Rebecca was hiding, but every time I asked, she gave me the same answer. Not yet. Rebecca, I'm the client. I know. Then why won't you tell me? Because if Jason's legal team learns what we have before the right moment, they'll try to explain it away. So I'm supposed to trust you? She smiled. You've trusted the wrong person before. This time, trust the right one. I hated that she was right. Over the following weeks, both sides exchanged evidence through the discovery process. Jason's attorney attacked everything. Every document. Every witness. Every claim. Whenever we submitted financial records, Christopher argued they were being misinterpreted. Whenever we questioned missing assets, he insisted everything had been legally disclosed. It felt like fighting someone who always had another excuse. Then something unexpected happened. Rebecca called me late on a Friday evening. I need you in my office tomorrow morning. Is everything okay? It's better than okay. The next morning, she introduced me to a man in his late 50s. This is Michael Dawson. He looked nervous. Almost guilty. Rebecca nodded toward him. Tell her. Michael took a deep breath. I worked with Jason for almost 8 years. I frowned. I've never met you. You weren't supposed to. He looked down at his hands. I handled financial compliance for one of the companies Jason consulted for. My heart skipped a beat. And? I resigned last year. Why? Because I couldn't live with what I knew anymore. The room became completely silent. Michael reached into his briefcase and removed a small external hard drive. I made copies. Copies of what? Emails. My pulse quickened. Thousands of them. Rebecca connected the drive to her laptop. Folders filled the screen. Dates. Invoices. Contracts. Private messages. Everything meticulously organized. Michael pointed to one folder. Open that one. Rebecca clicked. The first email appeared. It was from Jason. 2 years before our divorce. Once Lauren signs the updated financial authorization, removing her from the investment account will be easy. She never reads anything before signing. I felt sick. Rebecca opened another email. After the divorce, everyone will believe she cheated. I've already planted enough doubts. Another. By the time she realizes what's happening, no one will listen to her. I couldn't breathe. Those weren't opinions. They weren't assumptions. They were written plans. Jason hadn't simply lied after our marriage ended. He had planned every step while we were still married. I covered my mouth as tears streamed down my face. Michael quietly said, "There's more." Rebecca opened another folder labeled audio. What is this? Michael answered. Jason recorded business meetings. And? He forgot he was recording one private conversation. Rebecca pressed play. Jason's voice filled the room. Clear. Confident. Laughing. Honestly, Lauren still thinks we're saving for a beach house. Another man laughed. Jason continued. By the time I file for divorce, the money will already be somewhere she can't touch. Then came the sentence that made the room fall completely silent. People always believe the louder storyteller. Rebecca paused the recording. No one spoke for several seconds. Finally, she looked at me. This. She gently placed her hand on the hard drive. Is why I asked you to be patient. I stared at the screen. 5 years. 5 years of humiliation. 5 years of whispers. 5 years of wondering if I had somehow deserved what happened. Every doubt vanished in a single morning. For the first time since Jason walked into our kitchen with divorce papers, I wasn't afraid anymore. Because lies only survive while they're hidden. And in less than 2 weeks, the entire courtroom was going to hear every single one of his. The courthouse looked exactly the same as it had during the first hearing. The same marble floors. The same wooden benches. The same reporters waiting outside. But this time, I walked through the front entrance with my head held a little higher. Not because I was confident. Because I finally knew the truth wasn't just my memory anymore. It was evidence. Jason was already inside, laughing with Christopher Allen. When he noticed me, he gave me the same practiced smile. The one that had fooled so many people. It didn't fool me anymore. Rebecca leaned toward me before the hearing began. No matter what happens today, don't interrupt. I nodded. The judge entered, and everyone stood. Judge Margaret Sullivan looked around the courtroom before speaking. Counsel, you may proceed. Christopher went first. He confidently repeated the same story. Lauren Mitchell was a bitter ex-wife. She had fabricated accusations because she regretted the divorce. She wanted money. She wanted revenge. He even suggested that my recent lawsuit was an attempt to damage Jason's successful business. When he finished, several people in the gallery nodded. I recognized some of Jason's relatives. Amanda, his sister, avoided looking at me. Brooke sat beside him, her hand resting on his arm. She still believed every word he had ever told her. Then Rebecca stood. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't make dramatic gestures. She simply walked to the evidence table. "Your Honor," she began, "before calling our next witness, I would like to introduce several exhibits obtained during discovery and verified by independent forensic experts." Christopher immediately stood. "Objection." "On what grounds?" the judge asked. "Foundation." Rebecca calmly handed a stack of reports to the court clerk. "The handwriting analysis has already been authenticated." Judge Sullivan reviewed the documents for several moments. "Objection overruled." Christopher's confident expression changed for the first time. Rebecca approached the witness stand. "Mr. Mitchell, would you please return to the stand?" Jason smiled as he sat down. He looked completely relaxed. Rebecca held up the first document. "Mr. Mitchell, is this your financial disclosure submitted during your divorce?" "Yes." "And is it complete?" "It is." "You swear no marital assets were intentionally omitted?" "I do." Rebecca nodded. Then she displayed another document on the courtroom screen. The missing investment account. Statements covering 4 years. Deposits totaling nearly $200,000. Jason's smile faded. "Can you explain why this account does not appear anywhere in your sworn financial disclosure?" He hesitated for only a second. "It must have been closed." Rebecca didn't respond. Instead, she displayed bank records showing the account remained open. Only one name had disappeared. "Mine." The courtroom grew noticeably quieter. Rebecca continued. "Who removed Lauren Mitchell from this account?" I don't remember." "You don't remember?" "It was years ago." Rebecca handed another document to the judge. "The bank has confirmed the removal request was submitted using paperwork containing Mrs. Mitchell's forged signature." Christopher stood again. "Objection. Forgery has not been established." Rebecca smiled slightly. "It has." She handed over the forensic handwriting report. "The signature does not belong to my client." Judge Sullivan carefully read several pages before looking directly at Jason. "Mr. Mitchell, would you like to revise your previous testimony?" Jason swallowed. "No." Rebecca simply said, "Very well." Then she called Michael Dawson to the witness stand. The courtroom listened as Michael explained his former position, how he discovered irregularities, and why he copied Jason's emails before resigning. Christopher tried to discredit him. "You stole confidential company information." Michael answered calmly. "I preserved evidence of fraud." Rebecca then requested permission to display selected emails. Granted. The first email appeared on the large courtroom monitor. Jason's own words. "Once Lauren signs the updated authorization, removing her will be easy." A quiet murmur spread through the gallery. Rebecca showed another. "After the divorce, everyone will believe she cheated." Amanda slowly turned toward her brother. Her face had gone completely pale. Brooke frowned as she stared at the screen. For the first time since the trial began. Neither of them looked certain anymore. Rebecca wasn't finished. She looked at the judge. "Your Honor. I have one final exhibit." And suddenly, I understood. This was the evidence she had protected from the very beginning. The recording. Every sound in the courtroom seemed to disappear. Even the reporters stopped typing. Rebecca walked toward the evidence table carrying a pair of headphones and a small external hard drive. She looked at the judge. "Your Honor, Exhibit 47 is an authenticated audio recording recovered during discovery. A forensic audio specialist has confirmed that it has not been altered or edited in any way." Christopher Allen shot to his feet. "Objection." "On what basis?" Judge Sullivan asked. "The recording lacks credibility." Rebecca calmly handed another folder to the bailiff. "The authentication report has already been submitted to the court." Judge Sullivan spent nearly a minute reviewing the documents. Then she looked up. "Objection overruled." My heart pounded so hard I could hear it. Rebecca pressed the play button. Jason's voice echoed through the courtroom. Clear. Confident. Impossible to mistake. Honestly, Lauren still thinks we're saving for a beach house. A few people exchanged confused looks. Then another man's laughter filled the speakers. Jason continued. By the time I file for divorce, every dollar will already be somewhere she can't touch. The room became completely silent. Rebecca let the recording continue. She trusts me enough to sign anything. Another laugh. Then Jason spoke the sentence I would never forget for the rest of my life. People don't care about the truth. They believe whoever tells the better story. No one moved. No one breathed. The recording continued. Once everyone thinks she cheated, she'll spend years trying to defend herself instead of looking for the money. Rebecca stopped the audio. The silence was overwhelming. Judge Sullivan slowly removed her glasses. She looked directly at Jason. Mr. Mitchell. Do you deny that this is your voice? Jason stared at the table. Christopher whispered something into his ear. Finally Jason answered. I don't remember saying those things. Rebecca didn't react. She simply pressed play again. This time the recording became even worse. Even if she finds out one day, nobody will believe her. Another voice asked. What if she takes you to court? Jason laughed. A loud, confident laugh. Then I'll cry a little, talk about loyalty, and everyone will take my side. Someone in the courtroom gasped. I turned instinctively. It was Brooke. She was staring at Jason as though she had never seen him before. Tears filled her eyes. She slowly pulled her hand away from his. Jason reached toward her. She stood up. Without saying a single word. She walked out of the courtroom. The heavy wooden door closed behind her. Jason didn't even try to follow. Amanda looked at her brother. I defended you. Her voice cracked. I told everyone Lauren ruined your life. Jason avoided her eyes. Amanda shook her head. You ruined all of ours. She quietly left the courtroom too. For years I had imagined this moment. I thought I would feel victorious. Instead, I felt exhausted. Rebecca wasn't finished. She displayed one final email on the courtroom monitor. It had been sent just 3 days before Jason handed me the divorce papers. By next week the paperwork will be signed. Lauren won't suspect a thing. After that, the affair story will spread itself. Christopher closed his eyes. He knew it was over. Judge Sullivan looked toward him. Counsel, do you wish to redirect your client? Christopher remained silent for several long seconds. Finally he stood. No, Your Honor. Rebecca returned to her seat beside me. She leaned over and whispered. I told you the truth would speak for itself. I nodded, unable to answer. 5 years of lies had collapsed in less than 30 minutes. But there was still one thing left. The judge had not yet announced her decision. And everyone in that courtroom understood that Jason Mitchell's life was about to change forever. The courtroom remained silent as Judge Margaret Sullivan organized the files in front of her. No one whispered anymore. No one looked at me with suspicion. For the first time in 5 years, I wasn't the woman everyone believed had destroyed a marriage. I was simply Lauren. Judge Sullivan finally looked up. Mr. Mitchell. Jason slowly raised his head. Throughout these proceedings, this court has heard testimony, reviewed financial records, examined forensic handwriting analysis, read authenticated electronic correspondence, and listened to an audio recording verified by independent experts. She paused. The evidence demonstrates a deliberate pattern of deception. Jason's face had turned completely pale. You concealed marital assets. You submitted false financial disclosures. You relied upon documents containing a forged signature. And based upon the evidence presented, you intentionally damaged Mrs. Mitchell's reputation for your own financial benefit. Every word felt like another wall collapsing. Judge Sullivan continued. This court therefore rules in favor of Mrs. Lauren Mitchell. I closed my eyes. Not because I was celebrating. Because I finally felt the weight begin to lift. The concealed assets are to be reopened for equitable distribution. The plaintiff is awarded financial compensation consistent with the damages established during these proceedings. She looked directly at Jason. The matter involving the allegedly forged documents is referred to the appropriate authorities for further review. A quiet murmur spread across the courtroom. Jason didn't move. Christopher placed a hand on his shoulder and quietly said something I couldn't hear. It didn't matter. Nothing he could say would erase what everyone had just witnessed. Outside the courthouse, reporters rushed toward me. 5 years earlier, they had surrounded Jason. Today they wanted to hear my story. One microphone was held inches from my face. Mrs. Mitchell, how does it feel to finally be proven right? I thought about everything I had lost. Friends. Family relationships. Career opportunities. Years of peace. No court can give me those years back, I answered. But today gave me something even more valuable. What is that? My name. That evening my phone wouldn't stop ringing. People I hadn't heard from in years suddenly wanted to apologize. Some admitted they had believed every rumor. Others confessed they had been too afraid to ask for my side of the story. I accepted some apologies. Others. I simply couldn't. Forgiveness and trust are not the same thing. A week later, Hannah came over with pizza and a bottle of sparkling cider. She raised her glass. To the strongest woman I know. I laughed. No. What? I'm not the strongest. She frowned. Then who is? The woman I was 5 years ago. She looked confused. I smiled. She survived all of this without knowing whether the truth would ever come out. We sat in silence for a moment. She nodded. I never thought about it that way. Neither had I. A month later, I received a letter from the company that had removed me from its biggest client years earlier. They apologized. They offered me a senior leadership position. I accepted. Not because I needed validation. Because I had earned it long before anyone believed me. As for Jason, his business partners distanced themselves. Several contracts disappeared almost overnight. People who once praised his honesty no longer returned his calls. His reputation collapsed for the same reason mine once had. People stopped believing his story. The difference was simple. Mine had been destroyed by lies. His was destroyed by the truth. Sometimes I think back to the day he placed those divorce papers on our kitchen table. He believed he had planned everything perfectly. He thought he had stolen my future. Instead, he only delayed it. If there's one thing my story taught me, it's this. A convincing lie can fool people for years. But when the truth finally arrives with proof, it doesn't have to shout. It simply has to exist.